Good morning. How are you? Today's lesson is the importance of sunlight to living organisms. We know that the animals depend on plants to get their food. So, we can say that the plants are the main source of food and energy for living organisms. But the plants also are living organisms. So, how do the plants obtain their food? The green plants can make their own food by a process called photosynthesis process, which takes place in the green leaves. As they contain chloroplasts or green plastids. We talked it before, remember? We said before that the chloroplasts or the green plastids which exist in the plant cell are responsible for making the plant their own food. The chloroplasts also give the plant the green color and absorb the sunlight. Take the sunlight. So, there is a relation between the sunlight and the photosynthesis process. The sunlight is very important because the plants use it in the photosynthesis process. In the photosynthesis process, the plants take three components, which are carbon dioxide, sunlight, water, and minerals. Carbon dioxide from the air, sunlight from the sun, water and minerals from the soil. And then we have components produced here. From the photosynthesis process, the plants produce oxygen gas, which is important in the respiration process, excellent, and sugar and starch. The food of the plant is sugar and starch. Look at this figure. The plants take sunlight, carbon dioxide, and water to produce what? Oxygen gas, sugar, and starch. So the sunlight is very important for plants to make the photosynthesis process. To prove that starch is produced during the photosynthesis process, we will use iodine solution and a leaf. Put iodine solution on this leaf. The iodine solution is a brown liquid, a chemical substance that's used in the science lab. So again, put iodine solution on that leaf and let it for 2 minutes. What will happen? We will see that the leaf will be colored blue due to the presence of starch. If there is no starch, the color will not be changed. So again, we test the starch by the iodine, which will give a blue color. Now, look at the relation between the photosynthesis process and the respiration process. Do you remember the respiration process? For this animal, it takes oxygen gas and produces carbon dioxide. Again, during respiration, living organisms take oxygen gas and produce carbon dioxide. Then, this plant use the carbon dioxide gas, water, and sunlight to produce oxygen gas and starch. Again, during respiration, this animal takes oxygen gas and produces carbon dioxide. Then the plant takes carbon dioxide, water, and sunlight to make the food, which is starch and oxygen gas. during the photosynthesis process. Now, we can classify the living organisms according to their feeding, according to how they feed. The living organisms are producers, consumers, and decomposers. Again, the classification again: producers, consumers, decomposers. Producers, consumers, decomposers. Let's start with the producers. Producers, they are called also autotrophic organisms. Again, producers or autotrophic. The producers are living organisms which can make their food by the photosynthesis process. As we said before, who can make their own food by the photosynthesis process? The plants. Another example, the green algae. Look at this figure. This is called algae. And some types of bacteria. So again, the producers are living organisms which can make their own food by the photosynthesis process. So, any living organism can make its own food by the photosynthesis process is called producer. Are we producers? No. The second type, consumers. Consumers are living organisms which depend on producers directly or indirectly to get their food. What's meant by directly or indirectly? Directly meaning they feed on producers only. They eat plants, for example. Indirectly meaning they feed on other consumers which feed on producers. Let's discuss these two types. They are herbivore and carnivore. Herbivore, carnivore. So, consumers are divided into two types, herbivore, carnivore. The herbivore are consumers that feed on producers only. Carnivore, they are consumers that feed on other consumers. Let's take examples to understand these two types. The herbivore, like cow, sheep, hen. These consumers eat plants, so they feed on producers only. Look at the carnivore, lion, hawk, snakes, tiger. These consumers eat other consumers. The lion eats cow or sheep, so carnivore feed on herbivore. Carnivore feed on herbivore, so consumer that feed on other consumer, which is called carnivore. Again, we have herbivore, carnivore. The herbivore feed on producers only. The carnivore feed on other consumers, which feed on producers. The lion eats the cow eats plants, so the lion is carnivore and the cow is herbivore. Lions eat cows, cows eat plants, so lion is carnivore and cow herbivore. The third type is decomposer. The decomposers are living organisms that get their food from decomposing the dead bodies and food remains. Again, the decomposers eat what? They eat the dead bodies and the food remains. The dead bodies and food remains. Let's take examples. Some types of bacteria and some fungi. Look at this figure. What is this green layer? This green layer is called bread mold fungus. Bread mold fungus. Take bread and leave it for a day, 2 days, 3 days. What happened? The rot is formed on bread. This rot is called decomposer, bread mold fungus. So, in our lesson, we took the photosynthesis process, which is important for the plants to make their own food, as the plants take water, sunlight, carbon dioxide, and minerals to produce oxygen, sugar, and starch. Then we took a relation between the photosynthesis process and the respiration process. Then we classified the living organisms according to their feeding, according to how they feed, to producers, consumers, and decomposers. The producers, like the plants, consumers, are divided into two types, herbivore and carnivore. The herbivore feed on producers only. The carnivore feed on consumers that feed on other producers. And the third type, the decomposers, which are living organisms that get their food from decomposing the dead bodies and the food remains, like some types of bacteria and some fungi like the bread mold fungus. The decomposers are very important because they help us to get rid of the bodies and food remains. They increase the soil fertility. Increasing the soil fertility meaning to produce more plants. And number 3, they are used in a lot of industries. If there are no decomposers, the earth will be covered with dead bodies and food remains. Thank you, do your homework, and goodbye.